just like to say I'm absolutely thrilled to be here to be on the Safran conference and listen and learn along with all of the other participants and panelists, as I totally agree, risk management is that continuous improvement. I believe that the presentation slides will be circulated at the end, along with the blog. So I suppose what I'm saying is please feel free to listen and maybe not feel the pressure to take notes during the presentation. This is also going to be an interactive platform, so Mark is going to help me as I journey along, and we'll try and get some interactive sessions going with some questions and answers. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm Donna Festorazzi. I have 20 years experience in the field of risk management, and I'm currently the Director of Risk Management for Stantec UK and Ireland. My passion for risk is really why I continue to learn both academically as well as through forums like this and lots of networking with the IRM and other professionals. As I've mentioned, I work for Stantec, and our purpose is about creating communities, and we design with communities in mind. That's, if anyone knows or looks up Stantec, that is our vision. I am really fortunate, I think, early on to work within the programme management and integrator services within Stantec, as this really allowed me to work with specialists, so the wider kind of project controls and other areas that risk management actually touches on, as I have went through my journey in risk management. And I think the insight that I'll talk about today really became apparent due to working with others and removing that siloed risk management function working. So in the programme management integrator services and the people and experts that I've worked with are within PMO and programme management, cost and commercial, controls, performance, reporting and governance. And as you see, and as I talk through my thought processes today, you maybe see how this collaboration is really helping the risk management journey. So Mark, I'm not too sure, but I'm looking for some help just now to see if you could put up the poll for everyone.
Yep, doing it right now for you. 1 second.
So Mark is going to share our first question, and that's really just to ask the audience how many people currently experience that they are having to kind of push risk management, sell the benefits, use governance a way of undertaking risk management in organisations. So you should see a little pop-up that's coming up with saying poll open.
They do. Strangely, you don't see it, I don't think, Donna, but I'll read the questions out for you. So everybody, you should have a pop-up, click any of the statements that you think reflect your experience. I slightly had to manipulate your questions because there's only so many words you can fit on the questions, but they're this. Which of the following do you reflect your experience? 1, we're having to push and sell the benefits of risk management. We don't have to sell the benefits of risk management. We use governance as a way of justifying risk management, or we don't need governance to justify risk management. It's essentially really 2 questions there. It's the only way we can get 2 questions at the same time when there's a yes/no. Good, we're getting some really good answers. Actually, and this is telling. I know you can't see the numbers yet, but Donna, but I can. There's a definite pattern emerging. I'll give you that clue. And as soon as sort of the numbers start to slow down, I'll close the poll and share the results with you. I'm going to do that now. It's very clear what the audience is telling us. So, okay, closing the poll. And for the audience's benefit, here's the summary of what they took. So Donna, because you can't see this, the first two were sort of the same question with a yes, no. So 42% of the audience said, yes, they are having to really push and sell the benefits of risk management. And only 15% said that they don't have to push and sell the benefits. So I think a strong indication that mostly, the audience has to work hard to justify what it is that they do. And then, yeah, okay, yes, 37%, even stronger here, 37% of the audience is saying we do use governance as a way of justifying risk management, and only 6% said no, we don't need to have to do that. So both answers to the question saying it's a struggle. It's a struggle to get senior executives, I think, to understand the value of what we do.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for that. And as Mark has, obviously I can't see it, but that really has been the struggle for myself and colleagues that I've worked with for many years. And that seems to be the challenge, that trying to get people to see the value and insights is hard, and it's not always recognised. And you'll appreciate, as risk managers on the forum and wider project control specialists, this is hard to kind of take, because we know that risk management provides those benefits. Yeah, so where are we going wrong? So I'm going to provide my thought process on how we can maybe change that balance. And in my opinion, and through my experience, I genuinely believe this is through collaborating with others. The technical side helps, but the collaboration and the softer skills really enables us to move risk management and allow those elevated conversations. So the most downloaded paper the APM ever published basically said that 80% of projects fail to meet the planned objectives. And I often wonder, as you probably are just now, how many of them had actually risk managers working on their projects. And I would suggest that it was probably too many. So the real issue that risk management kind of faces is that it's acknowledged and widely accepted that if threats and opportunities are managed correctly, this empowers teams to drive efficiencies, it reduces surprises, it enables informed decisions. I'm kind of telling you all the things you probably already know. Therefore, what always confuses people, and especially myself, is that the reality is very different. There seems to be this disconnect between risk management and the benefits. So I often hear risk management's a tick in the box exercise. Been hearing that for 20 years. And also with some of the panelists I've worked with, I'm pretty sure they've heard that as well. Often undervalued by technical specialists, as risk management can be viewed as a generalist area. And finally, sometimes in order to get things kind of through, we create silos for ourselves to make sure risk management gets done, so we can maintain that challenge without being on board with them. And disappointingly, I suppose for me, organisations become data rich and knowledge poor. And even although we've talked about, in our current environment in the UK about the intelligent client model, we are gathering a lot of data, but what are we actually able to do with it? So the truth of the matter, I think, is that risk management cannot do this alone. They require the support and the integration of others to actually help us let them see the benefit. So before we head off, and looking at our campaign of how do we get risk management back on the forums, I think we need to look at the importance of our stakeholder. For anyone that's ever spoken to me in probably the last 10 years, it seems to be one of my key kind of topics of choice to talk about. And this is really where I've probably got most of my thought processes and insight has come from working with stakeholders. And that is understanding that we learn through not just looking at things through the stakeholders' lens, but not just acknowledging them, but looking at the situation and actually seeing how does it feel how does risk management, if you put risk management on from a stakeholder's point of view and you wore it, how does that feel? So firstly, at the moment, what I can tell you is that the conversations I hear is that risk management's a blocker and not an enabler. And that is really hard as a risk manager to accept, especially when I know that me, my teams, and other fellow colleagues are all trying to work very hard trying to enable project managers. So just to go back to the polls, the last poll basically, I think, told us that what I've reflected today is probably how you're feeling for the majority of people. The next question, Mark, if you don't mind helping me again, is to ask you about how you use risk management in your businesses and organisations.
Yeah, Donna, the questions come up on the audience's screen, so I'll read it out for you. They can see this. Donna asks, do you use risk insights to drive change in efficiencies? And then there's a yes, no, or not sure response. The audience is getting very quick at this now. Thank you, everybody. The numbers are flooding in much faster than last time. You guys are so quick. So when I get to about, this will take even less. Yeah, goodness me. Okay, 57% of you voted. There's a very clear picture. I'm going to close. Thanks, everybody. Close the poll now and share those results. Donna, okay, so 67 people, 67% of people that responded said yes, they do use risks insights to drive change and efficiency. That's really, really encouraging. Only 17% said no, 15% not sure.
Okay.
So that's encouraging. I'm really pleased with that.
Yeah, and I think it proves that we are, as risk managers, we are using that data, we are interpreting that data to help and enable what we believe the project managers, the project community, the organisation, whatever level that you are in, working within an organisation. And just to kind of reflect is that we still feel that we are having to sell the benefits of risk management. So I think we just have to have a think about that, yeah, maybe one you can ponder over later and through the week. So one of the things, it is encouraging, Mark, that we are now doing that, because for a long time we didn't. But just to kind of get my thoughts in order is that I read this from Albert Einstein quite a while ago, and it really resonated with me through conversations with risk management. And he says that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And as a risk manager and the conversations that I have with others, that really resonated. How can we change? How can we move things on? How do we make people feel value? Because we are kind of doing that continuous loop, but we're not making it more efficient. As well as that, Nick Smallwood from IPA said that the success or failure of a project is often determined in its early stages. So again, people that understand risk management working in the fields of projects, they highlight the importance of risk management. But how can we really make the wider community see this? How can we change so that others see and feel that we are adding value? And for me, this is all about integrating risk management and performance management. And this is where I've seen excellent results. As you can see on the slide here, we've got governance and performance management going through the whole entirety of a project life cycle. That's just an example I've given today. And but you can also see that risk does the same. So they've got an area in my thought process was maybe we could work with these kind of specialists to see how we can move risk management on. So the APM basically have indicated a change of mindset for projects. They're saying that most projects are failing on multiple fronts, and they're actually now talking about the project management 4.0, which suggests shifting and redefining and refocusing on efficient outcomes to effective outcomes. And for me, you know, as Mark says, he's heard me talk about performance management, risk management before, and this really resonated with me because I actually think this is what risk management needs, is a bit of a change of mindset. And I think the professionals that we work with probably know the answers, and we just need to see how we take that forward. So the insights and the change of mindset that I've been thinking about was also substantiated after my MSc in risk leadership, where I interviewed 35 companies, and it definitely came up like the polls with a strong kind of sense that we need to redefine and we need to integrate risk management to get those effective outcomes to, so that we can drive value and benefits for our clients, our customers, and those that work with us. But the key insights were three things for me. Firstly, reduce the meetings, but maintain assurance. And just let you think about that, because that's quite a change in mindset. Remove governance as a risk management checker. And actually, how do we make that an enabler? And also to see risk management really through the lens of the stakeholder. As really, once we do that, we can start to get risk management back on the agenda and be talked about. And that's really important, because I think that's where we all want to get to. So just taking a deep dive in practically how I have been able to see this coming through to success with risk management and the synergies with performance management, is that I kind of started looking at, how do I get people on board and interested in risk management? How do I change that push to pull? Because I find that really tiring. And, with someone so passionate about risk management, it can be a kind of real demotivator day to day. So the first thing I thought about was enabling and empowering teams. So what do I mean by that? Well, firstly, we need to remove the stick, yeah? And I call it the carrot and the stick, because that's just how we talk about things, yeah? So in governance checks, what I noticed was that if we couldn't get people to come on board and complete their risk management, what we did was we used the governance gateways, checks, go no goes, etc., to actually block them. And in some ways, that made us feel like we were important. However, imagine if we were actually to coach and mentor the teams proactively before the gates, be a little bit more tolerant, I suppose, and provide time for people to actually make the improvements. Because what I see, and what I've done in the past, I suppose, and moving on, is to escalate too quick. I'm not saying we shouldn't be firm, but we maybe need to wear the hat of the stakeholder a little bit more. And review the documentation, keep it to a minimum. What is the nice to haves and what is the needs to know? I always speak to my team about, we get compliance and then we try and get assurance. Yeah. So pick your fights, and make sure that you've got you're concentrating on the key things that you actually need. Ensure the system is as automated as possible, and as practical as possible, as intuitive as possible, and only capture things that you're going to use. Because project managers, teams, we're all really under, projects are getting more complex, more efficiencies, time's getting, of the essence. So if you're not using the data, you can understand why they would have a problem having to keep filling it in. And as I've said earlier on in the presentation, and when I do talk to people, what we're all only doing is becoming that data rich and knowledge poor. And what I do know is that really affects the risk culture and the appetite within organisations. But I think the most critical thing that I've learned is that I do a lot of change and transformational change in risk teams. And what I have learned very much is that it's a journey, and you really need to understand where the organisation is and then work with that to go on the journey. Because you can't go from, I often say, a light jog around the park to being Usain Bolt in a year. It just isn't possible. So we need to understand where we're at and look for small step improvements. The second thing I talked about, assurance with reduced time. So what does that actually mean? And it's quite a a kind of juxtaposition, isn't it? But this is where really performance management has come in and helped me. Performance management, just to clarify, is the process of baselining and monitoring performance on projects and organisations. We all know that the project community have limited time, and it reduces their appetite to come to risk meetings. So looking through a different lens, changing the mindset, I noticed that everyone attended a performance management meeting. As performance management is really dear to everyone, it's important, and it's a measured key kind of metrics that the organisation, the project, the programme will be monitoring. So can you imagine if you were able to sit in a performance management meeting? You were able to do this with your risk register in front of you and listen to what's being discussed. And generally, in hindsight of about 10 years of doing this, you hear what the key opportunities and threats are in the project, because it's usually that's actually, making the performance better or having a negative impact on the performance. So what you're able to do in that setting is that you're able to check if the risks are actually on your risk register. So there you're automatically looking at assurance. But what it does do is it changes your role. And what it does is it changes your role from being seen as a generalist that captures information, that updates the risk register on their behalf, to actually being an advisor. And within the meeting, you're able to start conversations to talk about risk, that the project teams and communities start to see that there's synergies between risk and why it's important. And it also allows you to be very highly collaborative with them, building rapport with your stakeholders. So for risk managers, it enables us to escalate conversations. It enables us to build confidence in the risk data, because what we're talking to people and interpreting their data to, and we know that the data is real. And that creates a risk culture in meetings outside the risk workshop. So I'm not saying that there is not the right time for risk meetings and we should give up our risk meetings. Absolutely not. However, there is maybe an opportunity for us to collaborate and be in other meetings, which would really help risk management. And we would get the same impact, the same outcome, with less risk management meetings in the diary. The third one, and lastly, is about, in my experience, what gets measured gets done. So getting risk on the agenda is really important to create that tone from the top approach. And this is where I've found that you get more of the pull than the push. And that's exactly where I like to work. Yeah. Where when I've experienced this is when I have been able to integrate risk metrics on a performance dashboard, a performance management type dashboard. The data alongside performance data, because it's taken from lots of different metrics. What it does is it provides you with greater insight, and also it allows you to interpret what it means and not just siloed risk data. And that means that you can really narrow the focus and you can enable project managers to actually focus on what matters most. And with the time constraints they're under, this really assists and supports them. Again, seeing as a support, seeing as an enabler, where risk management wants to be and risk managers want to be. The key insight would be what I tend to do, because I'm quite a practical risk manager, is that I tend to try and understand what is the issues the senior leadership team have, and I would create metrics that would provide visibility on those types of questions or issues that they may face they're challenging. So that to me then provides them with visibility. It starts the conversation. It then allows them to understand where they are. So from a top down, you're seen as supporting, and that's where the value, and that's where we're all trying to get to. So the outcome, so I think this is the kind of key piece of, you know, bite-sized data that's like gold dust, is that when I have used these kind of 3 techniques, and when leaders are presented with data that they can relate to, they can understand it, they feel it's kind of assisting them in order to perform their role effectively, trust me, they ask for more. And then that is exactly where we want to be. We want to be getting risk on the agenda and spoken about. So again, this would enable me to have more discussions and risk people to be able to create more efficiencies in the business, highlight the importance of risk management, and ultimately create a data-rich environment that we can actually use. And with, I think it was 57 or 47% of people using those key insights for risk management to drive better practice. If you could understand that from a project perspective, you can imagine the impact you would have on your stakeholders in the project community. So my challenge for everyone and myself is that try and be a risk leader and an advisor, and not a facilitator or a person that updates a risk register. Enable the right conversations. By breaking down those silos, take away the stick to be able to be an enabler and be part of their team. To enable that collaboration approach that will ultimately lead to knowledge sharing. And again, as we talked about, risk management is about the continuous improvement. So this is all just an enabler for us as a profession and for effective outcomes for projects. And as I've said, I've seen this work very, very well through a slight change in mindset where you can create the synergies and the collaboration between risk management and performance management. So I've been working on this kind of model for the last 10 years, tweaking it, seeing how it fits. And as Mark says today, I have, you know, evidenced and have evidence that this practice, when working, 100% increases the risk culture and also the success of projects. So Mark, I wonder if there is, just really opening this up now for any questions that people might have. I've left some time for questions. I'm assuming I have time. I can't see the clock.
Yeah, we're a minute over,
No.
Donna.
Okay.
So we're going to take the questions, but if you were kind enough to say you'd stick around, Donna,
Yeah.
so we'll get the questions to you. We're just out of time to verbally ask them. What I will say to the folks though is, if you like what Donna was talking about, she's encapsulated it in a blog, and I've made that blog accessible to you. There's a single handout in your little control panel. There's a section called handout, and there's only one thing to drop down, and that's the handout. And basically, for every presenter, you're going to be able to see the slides, so you can access Donna's slides. So maybe you want to share them with a colleague or revisit them in your own time. All the presentations are there in slide format. In about a week's time, we're going to actually get the recordings and we'll get those out to you as well. But also what the presenters have done is thought about what they recommend you do next if you like what they heard. And what Donna asked me to share was a blog. So you're going to see the summary of what she just said, and actually get a little video baked into the blog as well. So it's almost like a mini repeat of what she said. So thank you so much, Donna. I really enjoy that topic of yours.